Now that we have the control rig absolutely ready, uh, if you actually look at it, you'll realize that the control rig is doing nothing but control the skeleton, and the geometry is pretty much exactly at the same spot. So our next step is to make sure that the geometry is going with the skeleton that you've laid out. So first things first, let's make sure that we unreference or unlock the geometry. So you should be able to select it. Um, Next up, I'm going to go into the geometry and hide the head geo group, which in this particular case comprises of the eyes and the teeth and the tongue as well. So just Control H to hide that group. So I'm only dealing with the body geometry. All right. So here's how we start out. The process of getting the geometry to be controlled by the joints is called as skinning. Skinning is a deformation-based relationship, which means that the shape node of your body is going to be controlled by the joints. So if you go into the skeleton group, you should be able to see a joint here called a spine low joint. Just select that, and that in general would select all the joints. That's basically sort of the hierarchy of joints that you have. Then select the geometry. Uh, the parent joint first, then the geometry, because joints are going to be controlling the geometry. It's a boss subordinate relationship. And to make this happen, to make the skinning relationship happen, I'm going to click on skin, smooth bind, just go into the option box and make one small change for me. Change your max influences from 5 to 4, and that is going to be your first piece of homework, is to figure out what max influences are. Look it up, and if you have any questions, obviously ask me. I say bind skin, and there we have it. If I select the geometry now, I should be able to see the skin cluster. I should also be able to see that the translations, rotations, and scale attributes are locked. This is Maya's way of telling you that this body is now being controlled by joints. So if you want to manipulate it, look for the joints. Don't translate, rotate, or scale the geometry itself. Okay, let's see how it works. Now, if I select a controller and start moving it, you see that the geometry starts to work with it. Now this is kind of then looks relatively good. I can assure you it's not. And one of the examples that I'm able to see right away is this area right here, and the lateral muscles on the side. See how they're wiggling? Clearly means that something is wrong. There are lots of other examples of things like these. Like for example, if I select the head and if I rotate it, you see that the head is going through a weird deformation, not what we wanted, obviously. It's also pulling a small part of the chest out. Now I want you to understand what's happening. When I say bind skin, Maya basically runs an algorithm and it decides that that these vertices, based on its calculations, whatever parameters it takes into account, that these vertices in the chest are going to be, say, controlled by the jaw joint, or they're going to be controlled by the head joint. That's a default sort of a decision that Maya has made. We never want Maya to make decisions for us. So we have to fix these little decisions that Maya has done. So this reassignment of vertices to specific joints, saying that these vertices will be controlled by this joint, whereas these vertices will be controlled by this particular joint. So this assignment of vertices to joints is called as painting weights, and that is going to take you the most amount of time to do. This is going to be at the center of what we are going to be doing in this class. So to paint weights, select the geometry, right click and hold, and say paint skin weights tool. And that should bring up this little weird sort of a gizmo. Now I'm going to be working on the head particularly, so let's just make sure that we are able to select the head. Look for the head, which is right over here. Let's see if I'm able to find it. It's very important that you rename your joints. If that hasn't happened, then it's going to be very difficult for you to spot the joint that you're looking for. That's my head joint, that's my neck, and that's my head right here. You can see that my head joint is selected. Now when I select my head joint, you should be able to see some blacks, some whites, and some grays. The way I want you to interpret this is that the white areas are completely controlled by the head joint. The black areas are completely not controlled, which means that they have no effect coming in from the head joint. The gray areas means that these areas are under partial control from the head joint. That's what it means. Okay, so this is what I need to fix. This is understanding painted weights, and this is beginning skinning your geometry.